Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. Welcome to this rather interesting episode of Ignition Time where we cover important matters related to the country, related to the economy, and related to your money. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. This right here is a little bit of information about me. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. In this video, I'm going to show you a rather interesting exchange between the Republican senator from Kentucky, there he is, Rand Paul. What's up, Rand? And the nation's number one expert in infectious diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci. There he is. What's up, Dr. Fauci? In this exchange, you can hear Senator Rand Paul essentially functioning as an amateur epidemiologist and pointing to a bunch of studies basically saying, hey, is there a need for an individual to wear a mask after they've been vaccinated? Let's take a look at this first segment where Senator Rand Paul goes on for almost 3 minutes talking about different studies and laying down his case for why masks are political theater. Yeah, he actually used the word theater because he feels that all this is unnecessary, the masking is unnecessary. And I feel it's rather unfortunate that you have a United States senator essentially telling the nation's number one disease expert, infectious disease expert, that masking is political theater. First, let's take a look at what Senator Rand Paul said. And I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and play his whole segment where he essentially outlined his case. But the thing that disappoints me is it seems like Senator Paul has already made up his mind about his position, which is that masking, specifically double masking, is theater. And then we'll take a look at the extremely interesting and searing response from Dr. Anthony Fauci, who basically says, I don't agree with you. Masks are not political theater. And we have not taken into account all the variants that exist in our country. In other words, Dr. Anthony Fauci was politely trying to say, we don't know what we don't know. First, let's take a look at comments from Senator Rand Paul as he outlines his case for what he believes is unnecessary masking and unnecessary measures to do certain things post-vaccination. Pretty interesting segment. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Rand Paul. Let's watch.
Dr. Fauci, in a recent British study, David Wiley and others found that no symptomatic reinfections from COVID-19 after following 2,800 patients for several months. In fact, there have been no reports of significant numbers of reinfections after acquiring COVID-19 naturally. Shane Crotty, a virologist at La Jolla Institute for Immunology, concludes from his experiments that the amount of immune memory gained from natural infection would likely prevent the vast majority of people from getting hospitalized severe disease for many years. In this study, which was published in Science, Dr. Crotty showed that antibody levels stayed relatively constant with only modest declines over 6 to 8 months. Dr. Crotty reported that, notably, memory B cells specific for the spike protein, or RBD, were detected in almost all COVID-19 cases with no apparent half-life at 5 to 8 months after infection. In other words, Dr. Crotty found significant evidence of long-term immunity after COVID infection. Furthermore, Dr. Crotty noted B-cell memory to some other infections has been observed for as long as 60-plus years after smallpox vaccination, or even 90 years after a natural infection with influenza. That was a woman who got the Spanish flu, still showed immunity 90 years later. So rather than being pessimistic towards people gaining immunity after they've had COVID or had a vaccine, studies argue for significant optimism. In fact, there have been no scientific studies arguing or proving that infection with COVID does not create immunity. There have been no studies showing significant numbers of reinfections. Of the 30 million Americans who have had COVID, only a handful of reinfections have been discovered. In fact, the New York Times reported last fall more than 38 million people at the time worldwide had been infected with the coronavirus, and as of that date, fewer than 5 of these cases had been confirmed by scientists to be reinfections. Scientists interviewed for the article concluded, in most cases, a second bout with the virus produced milder symptoms or none at all. Given that no scientific studies have shown significant numbers of reinfections of patients previously infected or previously vaccinated, what specific studies do you cite to argue that the public should be wearing masks well into 2022?
Now, we heard what Senator Rand Paul said. Now, before I show you Dr. Anthony Fauci's response, let me show you this article on your screen from Politico. He's dead wrong. These are comments from Dr. Anthony Fauci about Senator Rand Paul. And Senator Rand Paul, on his part, called Dr. Anthony Fauci such a government worrywart. Yeah, he actually said that. Pretty interesting segment. Now let's hear the response from Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's trying to get a word in, who's trying to explain to the amateur epidemiologists that, hey, there are variants, we need to be careful, there could be a risk of a resurgence. That's absolutely something that nobody wants. Doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, doesn't matter whether you're for the red or the blue. As long as you're for the red, white, and blue, doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. We are all Americans first, and none of us want a resurgence. Let's hear Dr. Anthony Fauci explain as politely as he can that, hey man, Senator Paul, you don't know what you don't know. There are variants. There's a prevalence of variants. In other words, there are other versions of this pandemic that we need to be careful about. Therefore, it does make sense to wear masks. And I just want our viewers and subscribers to know that I've had both shots of the Pfizer vaccine, and I continue to wear masks when I go out. In fact, when I order something, DoorDash or whatever, whenever I have a delivery, I wear a mask when greeting the person out of respect for the other person. That's what I choose to do. What you choose to do is entirely up to you. Now, let's roll the tape and hear from Dr. Anthony Fauci as he responds and as he tries to set the record straight with the amateur epidemiologist, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. Let's roll the tape and watch.
I'm not sure I understand the connection of what you're saying about masks and reinfection. We're talking about people who have never been infected before.
You're telling everybody to wear a mask, whether they've had an infection or a vaccine. What I'm saying is they have immunity, and everybody agrees they have immunity. What studies do you have that people that have had the vaccine or have had the infection are spreading the infection? If we're not spreading the infection, isn't it just theater?
No, it's
you had
not.
The vaccine and you're wearing 2 masks. Isn't that theater?
No, that's not. Here we go again with the theater. Let's get down to the facts. Okay, the studies that you quote from Crotty and Sete look at in vitro examination of memory immunity, which in their paper they specifically say this does not necessarily pertain to the actual protection. It's in vitro.
And what study can you point to that shows significant reinfection? There are no studies that show
Just let me finish the response to your question, if you please. The other thing is that when you talk about reinfection and you don't keep in the concept of variants, that's an entirely different ballgame. That's a good reason for a mask. In the South African study conducted by J&J, they found that people who were infected with wild type and were exposed to the variant in South Africa, the 351, it was as if they had never been infected before. They had no protection. So when you talk about reinfection, you've got to make sure you're talking about wild type. I agree with you that you very likely would have protection from wild type for at least 6 months if you're infected. But we in our country now have variants that are circulating.
Significant reinfection. What study shows significant reinfection, hospitalization, and death after either natural infection or the vaccine? It doesn't exist. There is no evidence that there are significant reinfections after vaccine. In fact, I don't think we have a hospitalization in the United States after the 2-week period after the second vaccination. We don't have a death in the United States.
You're not hearing what I'm saying about variants. We're talking about wild type versus variants.
And what proof is there that there are significant reinfections with hospitalizations and death from the variants? None in our country. 0.
Well, because we don't have a prevalent of a variant yet. We're having one. Can I finish? We're having 117 that's becoming more dominant.
Policy based on conjecture.
No,
it
isn't based on conjecture.
Variants, so you want people to wear a mask for another couple years.
No,
you've been vaccinated and you parade around in 2 masks for show.
No,
you can't get it again. There's virtually 0% chance you're going to get it, and yet you're telling people that have had the vaccine, who have immunity. You're defying everything we know about immunity by telling people to wear a mask who've been vaccinated. No. Instead, you should be saying there is no science to say we're going to have a problem from the large number of people being vaccinated. You want to get rid of vaccine hesitancy? Tell them they can quit wearing their mask after they get the vaccine. Okay. You want people to get the vaccine? Give them a reward instead of telling them that the nanny state's going to be there for 3 more years and you got to wear a mask forever. People don't want to hear it. There's no science behind it.
Well, let me just state for the record that masks are not theater. Masks are protective. And we
You have
ask people,
immunity there, theater. If you already have immunity, you're wearing a mask to give comfort to others.
Senator
You're
Paul,
not
out of
wearing a
time,
mask
and I
because
would
of any
like Dr.
sign.
Fauci to
I
be able
totally disagree with you.
That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching. That was a rather interesting exchange between the amateur epidemiologist, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. I guess he went to school for epidemiology. One thing we do know is he likes to read a lot. He likes to quote these massive studies and try and present himself as being extremely well versed with everything he talks about. I have to tell you, he was prepared. But what was interesting was the fact that his mind was already made up, regardless of what Dr. Anthony Fauci was saying. And on the other hand, you have Dr. Anthony Fauci. I assure you, they gave each other a high five, a nod, and a wink after this TV exchange, and they clicked the like button. Actually, they didn't do that. But they do click the like button when they watch Ignition Time. I would really appreciate it if you click the like button, if you click subscribe, if you enable notifications, just like Rand Paul and just like Dr. Anthony Fauci do. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this interesting exchange in the comment section below. I appreciate you watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.